My name is Jessica Brown, and I will be your moderator. I'd like to now introduce our presenter, Dennis Palmer, Director of Customer Experience at HITRUST. On today's webinar, Dennis will cover the introduction and background of the HITRUST MyCSF, HITRUST MyCSF Compliance and Reporting Pack for HIPAA, and review the Compliance Pack's content. And then we'll jump into some Q&A. I'd like to now hand it over to Dennis to get us started.
All right, thanks, Jessica. I'd like to welcome and say hello to everybody. Thank you for spending a few minutes with me this afternoon, morning, evening, depending on where you're at. What I'd like to do is kind of take you through some of the things that brought us to the point of having this this HIPAA compliance pack, some of the ways that it can help organizations as they look at utilizing the statement, we're HIPAA compliant, we've met the HIPAA requirements, things like that. And so what I'm going to do is kind of take you through HITRUST overall, and then I will take you a little bit into the framework itself, and then I'll take you into the MyCSF platform, the HITRUST approach, the assurance methodology, and then finally ending with some of the analytics and reporting that has made this compliance pack a reality. It's very exciting because this introduces a very simple and easy way for those organizations that have gone through this process to go through and accurately and easily state that they have met certain requirements. It provides all the background documentation, things like that. It's a very nice deliverable, very exciting. I apologize, my allergies are kicking up a little bit today, so I will try to speak up and clearly. But first off, welcome everyone. First off, a little bit about HITRUST. HITRUST started around 15, 16 years ago around the need for actually meeting HIPAA requirements. It has grown into a very robust set of programs and deliverables, including a framework, an assessment methodology. If you look at the CSF, the threat catalog, the MyCSF, which is our software as a service platform, the assessment exchange, it basically provides an integrated approach so that when you're looking at information security risk management programs, instead of having to go to a number of different places to get your control set, identify your risks, tailor that control set to your needs, you have an organization doing that on your behalf, and we provide that as a number of different programs that are aligned specifically to HIPAA to meet the security controls, including breach notification, things like that. You can report out using a maturity model, and it includes how well you're performing the control, what elements you have in place to address each of those controls. They are mapped over to the HIPAA security controls. The one thing that I'll point out here in the middle, this really is designed to relate to an OCR auditor. And for those of you who may not be familiar with it, if you have a HIPAA security breach and they determine that they need to come in and do an evaluation, you're going to be looking at an auditor coming on site, or in some cases virtually. And really what this does is this provides a very easy way to relate to that auditor in their own language how well you're able to meet some of those requirements. Okay. The last thing you want to be doing when you're responding to a security breach or any type of audit is fumbling around for information, trying to find the right deliverable. What is the auditor asking for? Where did we put it? What file share did it get dropped in? We haven't looked at it for a year and a half and we have no idea where it's found. This really makes it so much easier when you're looking at that, utilizing this HITRUST approach, because we have that integrated suite of services. And all of those work together so that you can say confidently when you provide this deliverable out, when you go through and do the reviews, that you have met the HIPAA compliance requirements, okay? And there's a number of different things, and I'm not going to teach a class on HIPAA. That's not the intent of this particular webinar. We do have some other great content. If you go to our website, if you have more interest in kind of the nuts and bolts of HIPAA, really the intent of this one is to show Some of the new ways that your organization can utilize the reporting and analytics package within MyCSF, specifically this HIPAA compliance pack. This is the first of what we intend to be many compliance packs. So you'll see other tailored deliverables come out, come in the future. But when you look at these are all integrated into a seamless methodology. Okay, so you don't have to, go through and find a way to track all your results, determine what controls should be in place, all of those other things. And that's really the intent, is to make it simpler and easier for you so that you can focus on the actual protection and reporting of that, as opposed to figuring out how to make it work. Okay. So when we look at HITRUST, everything focuses around the CSF. Okay, and the CSF, when you break it apart, the CSF is one of the most widely adopted frameworks in the healthcare industry. Been thousands and thousands of assessments, reviews performed against these control sets. And one of the things that differentiates specifically the CSF from other frameworks and other assessment methodologies is the fact that we actually map to over 40 different authoritative sources. I believe 9.4 had 44 or 45 different authoritative sources, and you'll see some of those listed here. And so you'll see industry best practices, you'll see some government references in here, federal, you'll see worldwide references in here. We have ISO in here. We have GDPR in here. A couple of the different states have made their way into the mapping. And really what that does is, when you look at one of our control sets, you have confidence in the fact that these are industry best practices. They're mapped to known standards and frameworks that other verticals are using. Specifically to this particular webinar, you'll see here that we do have the elements within the HIPAA security, breach, and privacy rules. Okay, we do have those mapped on a unique element basis, and so what that allows you to do is, when you look at stating that you've met the compliance for HIPAA, it means that you have a tailored control set. It means that you've done a risk evaluation for reasonable and appropriate controls. You've done a risk evaluation. You've evaluated what may affect the security or privacy of that information within your environment, and you have a tailored control set. You've gone through, you've done the review on it, you've done the risk assessment. And so when you speak to saying you're HIPAA compliant, that's really what all of this boils down to, which is an integrated approach, so that you have the specific wording out of the HIPAA code. You have a unique environment that was addressed. You have the controls that were put in place showing that they're appropriate to the risk associated to that environment. And so all of those different elements make the HITRUST CSF and the CSF assessment methodology unique in the fact that we have all those things all in one place, and it's available for you to use. Okay. So next, I want to take you into the MyCSF. And so when you look at MyCSF, this is a software as a service platform. One of the biggest things that this allows you to do is focus on securing your environment, as opposed to going through and continually looking where you have documentation, determining your results, things like that. It allows you to collect very specific information that's required to comply with HIPAA and other regularly requested audit types. Within the platform, this is actually aggregated into a single deliverable for you. So utilizing the reporting and analytics within here, of which that the compliance pack is part of. This actually gives you a integrated report that includes a number of different things, so that when your organization is looking to respond to an auditor, that you have all that information mapped out in a way that they understand it, and it facilitates the ease of representing the fact that you've met compliance. Okay. One of the things that I did want to point out down here at the bottom, when you look at the compliance pack, this is included with all the MyCSF subscription tiers. So any of the subscription tiers that support the analytics module will have this built in. And I'm a little bit ahead on this, but I wanted to point out that this is a no additional charge feature within MyCSF. You could run these as many times as you need. And one of the things that we look at is this particular reporting and compliance pack is often used outside of specifically an OCR audit. You may have an organization that when you're negotiating business terms, they'd like to do a security review. And one of the things that we often see is how do you show that you're HIPAA compliant? You're protecting that information with the reasonable and appropriate controls at the appropriate levels. And this is another one of those things that the compliance and reporting pack can really be utilized for. So it's not just for OCR. It's not after the fact, after you've been breached and you're screwing around trying to figure out how to respond to these things. So it can be used for a number of different things. Okay. I'm going to go back into a live demo, and I'll spend a little bit more time taking you through each of these panels. But when you start into MyCSF, you'll see an aggregated interface. It includes the ability to tailor the control set, areas for scoring, commenting, those things that are part of any normal audit. Okay. The UI itself, very friendly, easy to use. If you go into down here, one of the things that when you look at stating HIPAA compliance is after you've done the risk analysis and identified what risk exposures you may be reasonably required to anticipate, one of the things that you need to do then is then identify a control set and an appropriate control set for your environment and for the risks present. MyCSF supports that through the HITRUST methodology by tailoring that control set. And so for those of you who haven't seen inside MyCSF, I'll take you through a detailed view of how we tailor that control set unique to every environment. It does have the ability to support multiple different environments. So you may have environments where, for example, you have HIPAA data, you may have a need for other types of regulatory requirements that need to be addressed. All of that tailoring is done through this interface. Okay. And so the next thing you'll do is you'll show the maturity of each of the different unique requirement statements. And when I break one of these apart, I'll show you how these map over to not only HIPAA, but also the other authoritative sources that are relevant to this particular requirement statement within a control. Okay. Once you have that and you've done your assessment build, you've tailored the control set, you've done your scoring, you know the maturity of each of the requirement statements within that assessment, then the next step is going to be analyzing that data and putting it to use. Okay, so once you have that scoring, and you can be at any phase during the scoring and run these analytics. It's not an end result so much as it is a checkpoint along the way for any of the assessment or audit work that you're doing. Okay, it does have robust reporting in here. You'll see a couple of different options represented here. You'll see the reports panel down here. You'll see the dashboards. Some of the subscription levels have the ability to tailor and create your own custom dashboards. And then finally, all levels will see this button over here with the compliance pack. So when that option is turned on, it will automatically appear. You won't need to refresh or anything. It'll just show up there as one of the options to use that. Okay. This is a dashboard view. This dashboard view, I'll take you through on the live demo some of the features available in it. But it's tailorable. You can You can go through, change the filtering. There's a number of different preset views that we have available to you. This was designed by folks who actually routinely do information security auditing and reporting. So a lot of these were built on previous experience. We also have an improvement program where if you have suggestions for it, you can send those in. I think we're well over 100 that have already been integrated in for updated dashboards and reporting. And then you'll see over here the reports. Okay. Now these are single deliverables designed for one-time extraction. And one of the things that I'll take you into is if you look over here, kind of the genesis of where we were able to start building this compliance pack from rests in one of these reports over here. So if you look at the authoritative source report card, this actually has the ability to do not only HIPAA, but also any of the other authoritative sources that map to a requirement in your assessment. I'll take you through and show you very quickly how that particular module works. But these reports are also available at any subscription level. Okay. And then finally, I'll take you into the compliance pack build. And I'll spend a little bit more time on this when I get into the live demo and take you through how this is built out, what options you have available to you. One of the things you'll see down here is you have the ability to configure this with or without any of the audit material as far as documentation. You can also tailor the entire control set specific to what the auditor is asking for. Very easy to use, which I'm going to take you into here in just a minute. This is one of the sample extracts that I pulled, so you'd have a visual of what that looks like in the slide deck itself. I do have a full example of the complete report that I'm going to take you through here in just a minute when I go into the live session. But I wanted to kind of give you a heads up on what you're going to see. And so this is actually the detail report. This speaks from the HIPAA-centric view. So we'd be looking at the HIPAA elements that were needed to be met. Over here, the particular text behind the requirement, whether it's required or addressable, and these are all broken out in a very nice spreadsheet. Okay. So Jessica, let me pause real quick and ask, have we had any questions on the content to this point?
Yeah, there were a couple questions here. Can you please explain what factors will you take into consideration for developing those analytics and visualizations within CSF?
Yeah, so one of the things that we look at, and what I'll do is I'll readdress this when I get into the analytics piece of it to show you what's in there and what also is available and how to ask those questions. But one of the biggest things we look at is customer input. And so when we see, one of my functions here at HITRUST is I act as a customer advocate. So as Director of Customer Experience, what I look at is things we're seeing from our customers. And that may be an internal customer, that may be someone on our assurance team who says, I need to be able to show my assessors, this or this or this, or it may be someone from an external standpoint where they're saying, for example, one of the reasons this exists is we saw a need for organizations to easily facilitate reporting compliance to HIPAA. It's one of the major use cases for the assessment itself. Even though we've gone industry agnostic with the framework and with all the controls, we still have a high percentage of individuals that are specifically utilizing this particular assessment methodology, the reporting, the high trust approach, essentially, to show compliance. But when we look at MyCSF itself, we do look at input from customers, and I'll actually show you live in the session where you can request updates or improvements to the tool. Be happy to do that. Was there anything else?
Yeah, there was another question about when the compliance pack would be available.
I don't have an exact date. I believe it's almost imminent. So I'm I believe in the next week or two, you're going to see that button go live.
Great.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, I will go ahead and hit the next slide, which I believe takes me to the live. Okay,
There's
go
a
ahead.
bunch in here, but some of them, you might cover here in the live portion.
Okay.
Do you want to just keep going and we can circle back?
Yeah, let's do that. Let me go ahead and take you into the live session. And then as things come up, more than happy to stop and address. But that way folks can see what's available. And for those of you who haven't been into MyCSF or seen the analytics or the reporting pack or any of the other feature sets, I can kind of speak to those. I believe that's my last slide on this. It is. Okay, so let me do this. Let me switch over and do a live screen share. Okay. And I'll just take you through the interface really quick. So when you log in, and I'm going to hop back out and re-authenticate in real quick for you. When you come into the initial landing screen, you'll see the available applications here. We do have the ability to authenticate into multiple different applications from the landing page. You'll click on the MyCSF tile. This will take you into your primary landing page. And then what you'll see down here, and I made this one easy to find, so I called it the HIPAA compliance pack. Okay. And so what I was showing you earlier, when you talk about the need for HIPAA compliance and need to state your HIPAA compliance and show assurances around meeting that control set, one of the first things that you would need to do is you need to go in and define what environment is being reviewed. Okay, so once you've gone in and kind of set the boundaries of your assessment, what is going to be reviewed, what is included from a system and facility standpoint, what does that risk environment look like? And so one of the things that actually is required as part of a HIPAA assessment is identifying reasonable and appropriate controls to your environment. Okay? Now, part of the HITRUST approach is we give you the framework, we give you the assessment platform, we give you the assessment methodology, we also give you the reporting, the assurance program. So once you've gone through one of these, you can actually have a formalized deliverable through a certification. And when you tailor that control set, what you're looking at is we are kind of slicing and dicing the environment. And we want to identify how you interact with the data, what your ownership level is of the data. You'll see here, I have this one currently configured for a hospital or inpatient facility. You may also see like an HIE, service provider, and we identify whether you're a covered entity, a CE, or a business associate, a BA. You may be some other element that doesn't fit those two. You also may be non-healthcare. Okay, and so when you tailor that control set, and this is specifically designed to address those things that we mapped out to the threat map. When you look at tailoring the control set, these controls will be sized appropriately to your organization, not too strong, not too weak. It has the appropriate strength to protect the data at the risk involved. And so each one of these, and you'll see there's about 30 of these different questions, these all help to tailor the control set and make it more efficient. It makes it easier to identify what controls are needed and what are not based on your environment and what you may need to report out against. And specific to this build, I wanted to point out one thing. When you're doing one of our assessments and intending to use the compliance pack, now this can be done right now on validated assessments and any of the existing 9.4 assessments. If you wanted to ensure that you have the latest control set, what I would recommend is going in, reviewing your regulatory factors. Okay, one of the key elements that you want to hit is down here at the bottom. You'll see the regulatory factors selection block for HIPAA, and then if I click this, you'll see I have the option to choose HIPAA, breach, privacy, and security. Okay, for this particular build, I only selected breach and security. Okay. And then you'll just go in here, you'll hit build or refresh assessment. And what that'll do is that will build out your control set and all your requirement statements, okay? What that does is that gives you these unique requirement statements divided up into the assessment domains. And I'll take you into one really quickly. So when you look at scoring one of these, this is actually the requirement statement that maps back to the controls, okay? And you'll see here we utilize a maturity model, so it's not a binary yes, no, we're doing it or we're not. We actually tell you with extreme clarity on how well you're performing a particular control requirement. And we identify that through 5 different scoring areas and we relate that back to a Prisma maturity score. And I'm going to go ahead and score these real quick and show you what happens once you do that. Okay. Based on these scores that are entered, you'll see a compliance status based on those responses. Okay. And what that means is you have met a sufficient level of maturity within that requirement to show that you are compliant. Okay. When you look at what all does that map back to? And this actually speaks to the mapping and the cross-referencing done from the HITRUST unique requirement statement up to a control specification, up to a control objective, up to a control category, and then over to the other frameworks. And it's really easy to see. You can come in here, and if you look at authoritative sources, okay, what you'll see right here is this will actually map over to these unique elements within HIPAA. Okay, so when you score that requirement statement, that will tie back directly, and this is in the reporting, to that element within the HIPAA security requirements. Okay, and this is where we pull the analytics out of to build that reporting. Okay, did that raise any questions, Jessica?
Yeah, you had a couple here. Do you need to select all of the HIPAA factors in the risk factors selection screen to get the highest level of compliance?
That's a great question. So let me take you back into that area real quick and I'll show you. So the current HIPAA compliance report is based on the breach notification and the security rule. Okay. Organizations needing to meet the privacy rule can add that in. At current time, it is not included into the HIPAA reporting pack. You can still report out against it, but this particular reporting pack does not currently include that privacy rule. Now, one of the other things that I will share is when you build out your assessment, you can build out a number of different ways. And so when you look at building out the assessment, the first thing you'll want to do is ensure that you have the right control set. So over here in assessment options, MyCSF facilitates this for you. And what we do is we ask you the intended use of the assessment object, and then you'll see down here, now this one actually includes both security and privacy against the CSF security controls and the privacy controls. And the reporting packs have the ability to pull essentially whatever is there. So if you didn't select all of these, and I'll show you on the compliance pack, what would happen is you would see lines in here that said that there was no element scored in support of that requirement. Okay. But yeah, to get the most use of the current deliverable, you'd want to select breach and security, which is typically where we see most organizations run afoul and have OCR come in. Okay. But yeah, those that when you're looking at the assessment build, you'd want to focus on breach and security right now. Okay. But yeah, that's where you go through to your scoring. One of the things that I will point out, now this is new, so this will start showing up when we turn this on. We've actually identified which of these requirement statements within MyCSF have the possibility of showing up in that HIPAA compliance pack. So one of the things that we added in was a note down here showing that if you're scoring this and you're intending to use this to show HIPAA compliance, we recommend that you put scoring or you put commenting in here because these are actually pulled into that HIPAA compliance pack so that the auditor can read them. The reason we do that is when you look at the reporting pack identifies whether you had a readiness or a first-party attestation or if you had a validated or a third-party attestation. If you did not have the third-party attestation, which includes commenting, the subscriber comments, the customer comments, would also be populated into that report, and so the auditor could see from the customer's perspective how they're supporting this requirement, in addition to the documentation and the maturity scoring entered. Okay. But let me take you over into the analytics panel real quick. Okay. I want to be respectful of time here so I don't get leave everybody enough time to ask questions. So when we look at the analytics, okay, and I showed you the dashboards, I showed you the compliance pack, I showed you the reports, and I'm going to trigger this one real quick while I talk through the reporting. So the reporting, you'll see over here approximately 20 different options for pulling pre-configured reports. Very robust reporting module, like your related documents report, your deficiency report called a real-time gap list. The one I want to focus on is over here, and that is the authoritative source report card. Okay. Now, the mapping that I showed you against the requirement statements where you were scoring, this is where the tie-in comes. And this is really handy because what you can do is, as you go through and pull an authoritative source report card, you can go through and identify which authoritative source you want to report out against. Now, because this is a HIPAA webinar, what I'd like to do is go through and show you the HIPAA security requirements that map over to this particular assessment. Okay. And so what you'll see here, now this is a higher level report. This doesn't have near the detail that that compliance pack does, but this is where the genesis we started building it out of this. So you'll see the high level HIPAA security requirements section. You'll see the requirement statements. You'll see a full breakdown of the maturity scores. And this one is, I believe, about 12 pages, 15 pages, depending on which ones of these you have and how large your organization is. Okay, but this is very handy because it can show you at a glance, think scorecard, it can show you at a glance the requirement statements that you've addressed and what you're using to address them. But it doesn't quite cut it when we're looking for an OCR audit. And so one of the other things you can do is if you look over here under dashboards, okay, so over here you'll see the different assessments that we've gone through and reviewed, and this is a dynamic dashboard. So as you go through, you have the ability to tailor the view a little bit better, and you can sort by maturity score, you can go by benchmark, things like that. What I want to focus on is over here. Okay, so when you look at your assessment, we'll start at the high level, and I'll show you that graphic, and then it'll take you into the sources view. This allows you to go through and see the raw scores. Okay. So this hasn't had that Prisma maturity applied to it. These are the raw scores based on points out of 100 in each domain. To see the sources, and this will be a very similar view to what you saw over on the other one, what you can do is pull the authoritative source, and instead of this view, you'll get a view that has more detail in it. Okay. And so when you look at the reporting from here, this one will have not only the control requirement, but also the scoring, and it will show you a graphic. Okay. And that takes us to the last area that I wanted to show you, which is one of the actual compliance packs. Okay. So when you look at the compliance pack, and let me back up just a step here. Okay. When you look at the compliance pack, okay, you'll see the build out of these. Now these do allow different options for building, and it's depending on use. So you'll select, if you're a member of multiple organizations, you'll have this drop down. Next you'll see the assessment. We're going to pick the compliance pack, and what I'd like to do is choose the HIPAA compliance option. Okay, this panel opens up and you'll see the configuration options for this particular compliance pack. Now, in my case, I always include evidence. Okay, when I'm looking at supporting one of these audits, what I want to do is I want to give the auditor everything they need to where once I provide them a deliverable, they don't have to come back to me. They have the answers they need. Now, with that being said, there may be times when your organization would rather protect some of that information and you don't want to do that. So you do have the ability to toggle these off and on. And additionally, over here, you'll see we mapped 135 different requirements or elements out of HIPAA. And depending on what the auditor is asking for to make their job easier, okay, you can actually take these all out and only select what they're asking for. If they're only asking for 45 CFR 164, whatever subparagraph and paragraph that comes down to, if they're only asking for that, okay, your entire compliance pack is going to be this line, tailored to that line. That's all they're going to see. So that if you, for example, know that you have a deficiency in another area, but the auditor has not asked about that particular one, they found a deficiency that they want to review, you can tailor the view and only give them specifically what they're asking for, okay? Additionally, like I said, you can go through, it's very easy to tailor these and get specifically the requirements you want, or you may have the other side of the coin where you're working with a business partner and you've done the NDA, you've done your due diligence with them, you're comfortable with sharing the results, and for that one, you can click this button and get the entire thing. And what this will do is this will take any existing work against those requirements and generate them into the compliance pack. Very simple to do. You come in here, hit generate compliance pack, and then what you'll see is you'll get an email to your authenticated email within MyCSF. That will include a link, and within that link, you'll just click it, and it'll give you a deliverable that will download to your local machine. Now the download will include a number of different things. And what I've done is I've taken those and put them into a quick visual for you. Okay. So you'll see one of the first things you'll see is we actually include this HITRUST HIPAA guide so that the reader of this information can see exactly how to utilize the information in front of them. Takes the guesswork out of it. Okay. They don't have to go through and learn a new reporting methodology. They don't have to learn how the results were compiled, all those other things. They can actually use this HITRUST HIPAA guide. It's about 40 pages, okay? It's detailed. It shows the auditors and any reviewer of that information what they're looking at very easily, okay? You'll also see the compliance pack. And so when you look at the compliance pack, you'll get a deliverable that looks something like this. The first page is going to be your document listing. Okay. Now these are the documents that were included with that generated compliance pack, including the document name, the document size, and there's also a mapping guide over here if you look at the compliance detail of which areas each of these documents support. I will tell you this is a very truncated report that I'm showing you. I specifically made it smaller for this webinar, so that as we go through and do this, I don't have, a 400-line report to show you, okay? Typically what you'd see is about 80 or 100 documents, depending on your document repository and how you supported your findings, okay? Next page over, you'll see the organizational overview and scope. And so when you look at reporting HIPAA compliance, one of the things that they look at is tailoring the control set. This shows the auditor or the reader how you tailored the control set, what environment was reviewed, when it was done. You'll see here it actually shows it created on date. Okay, so the auditor can see this is actually current information as of this date. This is all the information that's pulled out of MyCSF relative to that review. Okay, and also the facilities and systems included. Next page over. Very high level legend, and so what this will show is for both the compliance detail and the HIPAA scorecard, it will show you the scoring thresholds that each of these colors represent. Okay, so remember where I said you may have elements where either nothing was assessed or something was made NA. So when you see gray or black lines in those reports over here in the scorecard and HIPAA compliance detail, that's what that's representing. Okay, but it gives you additional information. If you bypassed reading that HIPAA compliance PDF that we provide, it will give you additional detail as to what each of those are, okay? Now, the first one I'm going to show you over here, this is the HIPAA scorecard. And so in this deliverable, we've broken up into two different areas. So the first grouping you'll see is under HIPAA breach notification. We include the HIPAA safeguard area, the standard implementation. This is the line out of HIPAA that each refers to. The text behind those, whether it is required or addressable. And then over here, you'll see the color-coded chart, okay? So we made these very easy to understand and review very quickly, okay? And so as you go through, you can look at each of the different elements that were reviewed and their current scoring, okay? And these are all the different areas that have been assessed, okay? And then over here, you'll see the HIPAA compliance detail. Now, I apologize, this on some of your screens, this may be a bit small, but this is a larger report. It has more columns than I can currently show on here. But I'll take you through each of the different columns and what you're going to see represented here. Okay, so starting over here at the left, the same type of setup, you'll see the HIPAA rule and the safeguard or area that was addressed, standard implementation specification ID, in other words, the mapping. Over here, this is the HIPAA requirement, okay, for the standard or implementation specification according to HIPAA, required and addressable. And so when the auditor starts looking at these, it makes their job a lot easier because they can go through according to probably a checklist or some type of document that they're using to see if they had a suspected area of deficiency, where it was, and whether it was addressed properly. Okay. Now remember I told you could put commenting in there if you're doing a readiness assessment. You'll see here, this is the commenting that was pulled out of the customer assessment or the subscriber comment block. Okay, and this helps the organization understand what they're reading and how it was met. Over here, now this particular one is a validated assessment. Okay, so what you'll see in addition to the full maturity scores, over here is the external assessor's commentary. Okay. One of the few places that we pull the external assessor's commentary out into a report, okay? But what this does is this shows the external validation and the techniques that were used to determine the compliance level of each of these different scoring areas, okay? And then if you keep scrolling over here to the right, this is where the document listing, each of those different documents will start showing up over here in the supporting evidence. Okay, so it makes it very, very easy. It facilitates the review by OCR auditors within your environment of how you're able to show compliance to HIPAA requirements. Okay, so Jess, I'm going to ask at this point. I'm sure I've got one or two questions generated. Do we want to start addressing a couple of those now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
and
yeah,
Jess, I'm going to pause you for just a second here.
Uh-huh.
I noticed, I did notice Mr. Michael Prezy. He's our one of our VPs of client development. So I want to business development. Sorry, Mike. I did notice he's on the call now. So I just wanted to say a welcome to him and just let everybody know that he may pop in and answer a question or two as we go through this. But welcome, Mike, and thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. I've tried to address as many questions as I could through the chat while you were talking. So hopefully I nailed all of them so far. But yep, thank you.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Mike. Okay, and with that, Jessica, if you want to start with the Q&A, let me stop sharing here, and we'll go back to the slide screen.
Yeah, Mike did answer majority of them, it looks like, already, but I can call out a couple that, you know, you might want to address.
Yeah, definitely.
So there's if any client wants to do only HIPAA certification, can they use this module without HITRUST cert?
Great question. So they would still need to go through to get specifically, and let me clarify the question. So when we look at HIPAA certification, when we look at these compliance packs, This is actually showing compliance to the HIPAA requirements. It's not actually a HIPAA certification. HIPAA doesn't offer a certification. But the compliance packs are available through MyCSF only. They're still welcome to use the CSF, the framework, to evaluate, but they would have to go through and do their own control customization and reporting.
Okay.
And I think, Dennis, maybe the only thing I would add is, right, if you have a MyCSF subscription, regardless of whether you're going through a HITRUST certification or not, as long as you tailor the framework appropriately and perform an assessment against relevant controls for HIPAA, you will be able to generate this compliance pack. So it is not necessary to be undergoing a full certification in order to leverage the capabilities to do that.
Yeah, that's a good clarification, Mike. Thanks for bringing that up. One of the things that I talked about earlier, and now that we've seen the compliance pack, I'll speak to a little bit again, is, this deliverable actually meets a number of different requirements that we've seen and requests that we've seen come in. And so we wanted to make this as easy to use as possible. And so what Mike's talking about is typically an organization would have a certification as one of their deliverables. The way the compliance packs are designed, you do not have to have a certification to generate the compliance pack at all. Okay. Now, you'll get the best result by ensuring that you have a validated assessment and that you selected the appropriate regulatory factors. In other words, HIPAA breach and security. But you would even be able to show partials if you didn't include HIPAA to work that you did do. The best result would be obtained through ensuring that you have the assessment with the regulatory factors included. But this can be generated on what HITRUST calls a security assessment, security and privacy, a comprehensive, or a authoritative source assessment. Okay. So you can actually go through and specifically select HIPAA security, privacy, or breach notification as one of we would call it a tailored assessment.
Okay, great. Another question here. How is the evidence provided if it is included in the reporting pack section?
Oh, yeah. Here, let me show you real quick. Let me, Jess, I'm going to turn on screen share again real quick. So when you generate the compliance pack and you get the email, what you'll receive is something that looks like this. And so you'll see this download is actually called the report number for the one I did was 1403. It'll show 1403 download, and it will actually have a title text that says HIPAA Compliance Pack 1403, which is your assessment name. Okay, so you'll see the HIPAA guide. You'll see the compliance pack that deliverable that shows you in the spreadsheet, and then your evidence is actually extracted into a zip file. And for this particular one, I only included one document, but that's how that would look.
Okay, thanks for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. Just trying to look here. All right, does it make sense to and is it recommended by HITRUST? Oops, sorry about that. Lost my question here. Does it make sense to and is it recommended by HITRUST? Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think there's a good one there on training that Dennis can certainly address. So maybe we can, maybe you could read that one around the training.
Sure. If a health tech solution provider wants its application to be HIPAA compliant and it is new to such kind of auditing processes, how will HITRUST team provide training to such organizations?
Oh, that's a great question. So one of my functions here at HITRUST is I teach the Certified CSF Practitioner Academy, and we do offer the academy virtually right now. The academy is our extension program that what we use to train all of our assessor organizations on the way to properly evaluate and utilize the CSF, the MyCSF, and the assessment methodology. So if you're looking on how to get the best results out of your assessment from understanding the scoring methodology, it's currently 5 days, and we take you through the framework itself, the assessment methodology, the reporting, doing scoring, commenting. We go through examples of performing validation. We look at the scoring rubric, very comprehensive class. And that's available if you go to our website, to the HITRUST Academy. There's a link on the website.
Thanks, Dennis.
Mm-hmm.
We got another question here. What can we utilize to show completion of the annual risk analysis requirement?
Oh, specific to HIPAA.
So, yeah, so I just answered that. Sorry, I'm a little behind on responding. So, great question. So the two major things that you're going to want to focus on is how do you tailor the framework appropriately and the methodology relative to the scoping factors, so the organizational, the risk, and the regulatory factors. That is actually the evidence of the risk assessment that is executed. And when you look at the risk assessment methodology, not only is it NIST 830, but components of 853 in addition to 171, and a mapping to the risk assessment methodology that we have for any organization that goes through that process. So that's what I would recommend. I don't know, Dennis, if you have anything else to add there.
Yeah, that covered the relative elements for the annual risk review.
Great, and we could certainly show you some more specific reporting around those for organizations that need that.
All right. I think we covered most of the questions between Mike and Dennis. Yeah,
hey Jess, I think there was one question around, can we download this instead of email? I believe that question is specific to the presentation, but I'm not too sure. So we may want to address that.
The presentation will be provided along with the recording of the event within 24 to 48 hours after the event. We'll follow up with an email and a link where you can access them via the HITRUST website.
Alrighty. And Jess, I see we're running close on time here. I wanted to give you just a minute. I do have a couple slides here on the back. So let me take you back to those real quick. And I will say this, if we have any other questions that come up, feel free to put them in chat and we'll get them responded to. If not, you can contact our info or support functions for other questions. Jess, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, so we just wanted to make sure that we mentioned if this was of interest to you and you want to learn more about using the MyCSF, not just the HIPAA Compliance Pack tool, please check out our HITRUST Collaborate event. It'll be held October 5th through the 6th. There will be workshops on October 4th. Dennis will be running one specifically on MyCSF user group, so make sure to check that out. You can register via our website, HITRUSTalliance.net under events, or else there's also a link in this webinar deck that again will be provided after the event today.
Alrighty. And with that, that will take us to our closing slide. And before Jess does hers, I want to say thank you everyone for your attendance. It's been a pleasure, and looking forward to hearing from you and working with you in the future. Jess?
Yeah, thanks you guys for attending, and again we'll be following up with the presentation deck and recording, And if there's any questions we weren't able to address on today's call, we'll reach out. Otherwise, you can also reach out to us at info@HITRUSTalliance.net. Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.